we are here with mayoral candidate John Tory at his campaign office, and he will be telling us a little bit about what's been going on with his campaign leading up to the elections in October. Hi, how are you?
Fine, thank you. Glad to have you here.
Thank you. So you are clearly one who has always worn many hats, from being a businessman, lawyer, and community activist. You've navigated both corporate and political worlds. So would you say that this experience serves as an advantage for you in your campaign?
I really believe that, and you have to believe in yourself, obviously, to run for one of these jobs. But I think if you look at trying to run the government well, I know many of your viewers, in the Korean community will be business people, and they'll know that, in order to run anything properly, including government, you can't spend more money than you're taking in, for example, and you have to make sure you spend money wisely. This is going to be very important, for example, to creating jobs in Toronto, is that we have good finances in the city, that the city is well run. And so I think that kind of experience, just the experience I've had running a big, complicated organization. I ran a company that had hundreds of millions and billions of dollars in revenue and thousands of employees. And that gave me the experience. It's not an easy thing to learn how to do. And so I learned how to do that. And I think this will help me a lot when I'm running a great, big, complicated organization with billions of dollars in revenues and thousands of employees. And so I think that, and just the very experience I had leading a big team of people, making decisions, setting priorities. I have a big priority on public transit. That's going to help me. All those things are going to help me a lot.
Would public transit be your number one priority?
I'd have to say yes. I mean, I think my top two priorities are public transit and traffic and transportation, and then secondly, jobs. But yes, I'd have to say number one is public transit, because I think we've done a very poor job at keeping up on that score, and we have to catch up now.
Recently, there have been recent polls that suggested that your Smart Track transit plan is on the right track. So could you tell us a little bit more about the plan?
Well, Smart Track does something that's so sensible, I can't imagine nobody championed this before. But it takes existing GO-Track train tracks that are laid across the city and puts them to work moving commuters around the city in 7 years. If you see the proposal Ms. Chow put forward, for example, for a downtown subway relief line, it's going to take 17 years. And I look at that and say, people can't wait 17 more years to have this awful, both traffic congestion mess and also the mess on the subway itself, to have some relief. And so the Smart Track, because the tracks are already laid down across the city, means you electrify them and can move a lot faster to get this in service, 7 years, as opposed to waiting 17 years. And so I think that's why people like it, because it is so sensible, it's very cost effective, and it can get done in 7 years, not 17 years.
So what would set you apart from the other candidates? Why does Toronto need you in particular?
Well, I think I'll say three things. First of all, I think my Smart Track transit plan is unique among all the candidates in that it represents a bold way to get action faster for people on traffic and transit relief, and to do it on a cost-effective, sensible basis. I think the second difference that I would name is my background that you asked me about earlier. I think my background in business and running large organizations is going to allow me to know how to run the City Hall better, to better use and pay respect to the taxpayers' money, to understand what businesses' needs are, which include keeping taxes down, and to better attract investment to Toronto when I talk about how important it is for me to create jobs. So I think the two things are probably my Smart Track plan and my experience, which will make me better at attracting jobs and investment to Toronto, better at achieving results, and frankly, better at working with other people, whether it's other governments or the city councillors, because right now we've had a bit of a problem with the current mayor who can't seem to work with anybody, and that means you really can't get anything done.
So building a livable, affordable, and functional Toronto is your vision for the
Yes.
city. What are some initial changes that you would make based on the vision?
Well, livable really is all about transit, and we've talked about that. That is my number one priority, and it has three things underneath it. One is getting on with the Scarborough subway. We've debated that 100 times, it seems, and we've made a decision and then changed it and made another decision and changed that. I'm going to stick with the decision all three governments have made to build the Scarborough subway, and they've put their money up as well, and get on with that. Secondly, I'm going to build the Smart Track line we talked about earlier, which will connect people to jobs and provide new transit through the city in 7 short years. And thirdly, I have a whole series of other measures, including express buses and all kinds of things that are just common sense to eliminate traffic congestion, not completely, but to substantially reduce it in a short period of time. So that's number one, under livable. Under affordable, keep taxes low, property taxes at or below the rate of inflation, and attracting jobs and investment to Toronto. And that also entails really attacking the waste that still exists down at Toronto City Hall. And functional says, I'm going to get along with the members of City Council so we can get some things done and work in partnership with the other governments, provincially and federally, and with business and labor to make sure that we can make this a prosperous and strong city.
So Toronto has seen a severely deteriorating unemployment rate, especially in terms of youth unemployment. So considering your background and your experience, how would you address this issue?
Well, I think what we have to do is two things. One is sort of the shorter term and the other is the longer term. In the shorter term, I think we have to mobilize a lot more companies, including many of the people that are watching today who are, the Korean business people are so successful at establishing and making to grow enterprises. And I want to recruit them to help maybe just provide one opportunity, just one each, for a young person who's unemployed in the city right now. And so I've talked, for example, about doubling the number of companies that take part in one of the city's best job creation programs for young people. And if we doubled the number of companies who take part, we would create hundreds of new opportunities for young people. So I've talked about that, but the longer term part is making sure we attract companies to Toronto from all over the world, or make it possible for entrepreneurs in the Korean community or elsewhere to want to invest here to create new long-term career jobs for the young people. And so I think that there's the two parts to this. One is the part to help those who are in need and struggling right now. And the second is to attract new people to come here and create new jobs, or existing businesses to expand. And that's something, again, I understand very well because I've been in business and I understand what it's going to take to get those people to make that decision.
Are there any plans that exist with you right now in terms of making that happen?
Well, on the short term, I've talked about taking this program called PAYE, P-A-Y-E, and doubling the number of companies who take part in that. And I would be quite prepared to do that and make that a personal mission of mine, to recruit those people one by one if necessary to create those new opportunities for young people. On the longer term, I have talked about creating, for example, a high-tech digital health corridor between the new Humber River Hospital on the 401 and York University. And so I've talked about those kinds of ideas that are a bit bold, but you have to know where you're trying to go when you're going to. I sat down with people from the food industry last week, and they told me what it's going to take to get more people from the food industry around the world to invest in the Toronto area. It's a very big industry. It employs 26,000 people in Toronto. I would like that number to be 36,000 and then 46,000. But you have to get new companies to come in here and existing companies to say, yes, we're going to expand. And so I have a lot of ideas, one of which I mentioned about the high-tech health corridor. And those are the kinds of things I'm going to push forward to get those people to invest here and create those jobs here.
You have been criticized for being an elitist, and yet I've learned through your past interviews about your passion towards community work, especially those that are labeled priority neighborhoods within our city. Could you speak to some of the work that you do as a community activist?
Yes, I mean, I'll say this. First of all, I find it puzzling that somehow being successful is a bad thing when it comes to running for public office, but that's just some of the, that's the best that some of my opponents and critics can come up with. Secondly, I believe that when you have a combination of fate and hard work that puts you in a position where you have had some accomplishments and some success, you have an obligation to contribute back. And so I have worked for organizations that would be too many to mention. And I don't say that immodestly, it's just true that I've been involved with everything from the Salvation Army, working with them and all the different problems they confront, whether it's women who are abused or people who are addicts or people who are homeless, to the United Way, where I chaired the campaign for all of Toronto and worked for years with them on the establishment of neighborhood hubs that served as a place where people could go in challenged priority neighborhoods to get help of all kinds. To St. Michael's Hospital, where I've helped raise money for the first inner-city health program, really related to the health challenges faced by some disadvantaged people, the first one of its kind in Canada, and I helped to raise the money for that. To Unity for Autism, which helps children with autism. To, I could go on. And I guess I find this the most fulfilling work that I've done, and also it has given me as keen an understanding of the problems faced by different groups of people in Toronto as you could possibly have, because I've been to their homes, and I've been to their communities, and I've been to their workplaces and to where they live, and tried to understand, and I think have succeeded to some extent, what some of the challenges are that stand in their way.
What do you think some of the most pressing issues are, and how do you think they should be addressed?
For people who are in priority neighborhoods?
Yes.
I would have to say number one is jobs. And it's not just about creating more jobs and attracting more jobs, but oftentimes people in those neighborhoods are quite isolated from jobs, either by transportation, and I think My Smart Track will help connect Scarborough and Etobicoke, for example, to downtown so people can go both ways to get to work and from work. I think housing is a huge problem. I think that right now a lot of the housing that we own, it's called Toronto Community Housing, is in very poor repair. And I think this is a discouraging thing for people who live in those neighborhoods and acts as a disincentive to those neighborhoods being in a better state. I think those are two huge issues, jobs and housing. I think if we got at those two, I'd say community safety is always a concern in some of those neighborhoods because there are gangs and guns. One of the reasons I was so profoundly upset by Mr. Ford spending time with some of the people he did was that these are the very people we're trying to get off the streets and keep away from our families and neighborhoods, people involved with guns and gangs and drugs.
Do you have any last words or a message you would like to leave with our audiences?
I would only say that if you want to see a city that is livable and affordable and functional, if you want to see transit get built, jobs get attracted to Toronto, taxes be kept low, waste eliminated from government, and if you want to see a mayor you can be proud of who gets along with the other councillors so that you can get things done, gets along with the other governments, then I think John Tory is the right candidate for you because I have the skills and the experience and the track record of contributing to the city and of knowing how to get these things done. So that's the message that I would share with your viewers.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, and good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.